Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Rajat Gupta, a member of the Automotive Equity Research Team at JP Morgan. Very pleased to have with us today David Michery, CEO of Mullen Technologies, joining us today to provide an update on the company and also the industry. We'll start off the session with a quick presentation from David, after which we can run through some questions that I have. And also for the audience, just a reminder, if you do have any question, please do post it on the online portal, and I'll be happy to ask them on your behalf. Or you can also email me any of your questions at the team email ID auto_guys@jpmorgan.com. With that, I'd like to hand it over to David. Thanks.
Morning. How are you today? So we're going to go through our presentation. Our first slide talks about our merger to intent with NetElement, a NASDAQ capital markets company, symbol NETE. A little background on this proposed merger. Mullen, on June 15th, 2020, we executed a letter of intent to merge the two companies. In that transaction, the Mullen shareholders will receive 85% of the surviving entity at closing, with the NetElement investors retaining 15%. There's also an opportunity to earn an additional 5% of the company if Mullen generates $100 million in revenue over a 24-month period, and those shares will be reserved for those purposes. There's also a $10 million capital raise that is a condition precedent to the close. Little historical timeline. Mullen Technologies was formed August of 2014 through acquisitions of several various different automotive assets, one of which was a company called Mullen Motor Company, which had been in business for approximately a decade prior to acquiring that entity. They produced a gorgeous hybrid, we'll call it a hybrid, back in 2010 vehicle. They called it a dual core drive. It had a combination of a very powerful supercharged motor with a battery operated drivetrain that could switch back and forth. It seemed to be a very interesting proposition. We acquired the company and then decided that we needed something that was a little bit more in line with what we believe the future to be, which would be an all-electric vehicle. And subsequently, we were very fortunate to acquire Coda Automotive assets from the ADOC Liquidating Trust in a 2012 bankruptcy. Subsequent to that, we were able to acquire additional energy assets in late 2017, early 2018, which led to some very sophisticated battery technology that we're developing as we speak. And then we entered into a unique situation for a all carbon fiber, what I believe to be a very sexy vehicle that I thought could be very competitive here in the US. We partnered up with a company called Chai Auto. They have a division called Kiantu, and they developed a vehicle called the K50. And together we decided that we would bring that car to America. And we debuted it April of 2019 at the New York Auto Show, and was very amazed the reaction and the amount of attention that we received with that vehicle. It would be an understatement if I stated that we brought the house down. The vehicle was very very well received. We garnered over 200 million media impressions. We were able to subsequently get out to Indianapolis for Indy 500. We ran a bunch of commercials at the biggest automotive event on the planet, the Super Bowl of racing. And we had a blimp in the sky. Everybody in the world got a chance to get a look at our car and take a look at the company. And then we continued to head over to Detroit, and we sponsored both Grand Prix there. And we ended our 2019 year at Pebble Beach. And we think we made a statement with our idea of a true electric sports car, all carbon fiber, sexy, got a lot of attention. And today we're working towards an SUV that we think will be a game changer, something that we're very proud of. And we're working definitely to get that into the market, hopefully sooner than later, but we anticipate 2022 to be a very big year for us. So I'm going to bring in our CEO of our automotive division. I'd like him to go over some of our plans as it relates to our SUV, our start of production, our agreement with the city of Spokane, state of Washington, where there was a press release that went out a month ago announcing that we had partnered up to go vertical on 1.5 million square feet of state-of-the-art facilities to not only manufacture and assemble vehicles, but to start the development of advanced battery solutions for not just the automotive industry, but for all industries that utilize advanced batteries. So I'm going to take this moment to introduce Callan Popa, and we'll go back and forth as we go through this deck. Callan?
Good morning, everybody.
Callan, come over here.
What we want to show with this slide is basically our strategy, our business model, and how we achieve our goal by investing $400 million as opposed to the typical cost to start of production of a startup, which is over $1 billion. And that's an investment over 5 years. And we believe we can do that with $4 million because we have a unique opportunity to purchase an assembly plant as well as a vehicle IP that it's already developed. So because the vehicle is already developed and a US team of engineers spend more than 2 years developing that particular electric vehicle, we cut the development cost from 5 years down to 2.5 years, and overall spending from over 1 billion to 400 million. Okay. Also, our strategy. This is which I believe a clear picture of Mullen value chain model showing how exactly we're going to do things. Well, after acquiring the IP, we obtain vehicle components from existing suppliers. We ship the components to the assembly plant where a battery pack is being assembled. At the assembly plant, we assemble all the components and the battery pack into the vehicle, and then it will be distributed to Mullen auto cells, which David is going to talk about that later in details, because Mullen has a group of dealerships, and we intend to distribute the vehicle built in our own assembly plant through our network of dealerships. Thank you. David? Oh, I'm sorry, there's more on the EV side. We'd like to introduce you our Mullen MX-05 SUV. This is designed in California We partner with a local design shop, and the target specification is to have this vehicle going over 500 miles. We'll be able to achieve that with a 150 kilowatt hour battery pack, which was developed or co-developed by Mullen. The vehicle will have a smooth drive, the latest technology such as solid state battery. We believe this is the vehicle segment, a mid-size SUV, that has the most potential. And that's why we chose a mid-size SUV. We've been studying the market, and all the information we received from third parties indicates that this is the most beneficial and the growing segment amongst all the other automotive segments. So our SUV is going to stand out with by the performance, especially range, but also 0 to 60, and styling as well. Very unique. Quick introduction to our solid-state polymer battery that was co-developed, like I mentioned before. What we can take away from this slide is a couple of things. It's very safe. It lasts more than a typical lithium-ion battery. That graph on your right, it shows that the degradation over time, the blue line, it's minimal. It's basically 2% over 10,000 cycles. And the red line, you see the lithium-ion degradation over time is very abrupt, which is a known problem with the current lithium-ion batteries. Thank you, Peter. Okay, we have a letter of intent with state of Washington, Spokane, for the city of Spokane, and we intend to build an assembly plant together with the help of the West Plain Public Development Authority, and we are currently in a design phase. We presented the layout, and we are ready to break ground in the next 2 months, I would say. Go on. Thank you. Like I mentioned, here's the layout of a proposed facility. We intend to assemble vehicles and assemble batteries in this facility. And you're looking at a functional layout, station by station process on assembling the vehicle to your left and a battery operation to your right below the warehouse. Thank you. All right, David is going to talk about the Mullen network, dealers. Thank you.
Thank you, Callum. To clarify, the facility in Spokane, Washington will be a state-of-the-art facility that will produce advanced batteries, not just standard lithium-based batteries, but batteries that will definitely impact the battery space on a global level. We believe that this technology will change the entire landscape of the battery world. And that's at the commercialization level within less than 24 months. So we're pretty excited about that. Now I'm going to get to our dealership network. One of the most important things when we looked at being in this space a decade ago, we asked ourselves a fundamental question. And that question was, listen, anybody can build and design a beautiful car. But here's the real question. How are you going to service that car? And more importantly, what type of experience can you create to give the consumer the confidence to go in and buy that car? And these are all things that we thought acquiring the Coda assets and having to service and be responsible for over 1,000 cars in the market, meaning provide parts, warranties, service, handle recalls, would give us the experience needed that money can't buy. Time can only deliver that, which is, I think, the most critical aspect to any new vehicle manufacturer that intends to get into the space. Again, anybody can make a car. Not anybody can service a car, establish confidence in the marketplace for the consumer to want to go in and buy that car, and to create the trust. The trust is the most important factor. And we looked at all of these things. And one of the things we as a team decided was that we needed to have the ability to control how that product flows. When taking a look at the past and looking at some of the some of the best minds in the world that have come before us, that tried to leave the OEM world and establish brands, one of which was DeLorean. I thought he did a fabulous job at Pontiac, taking the GTO and taking it to another level, and decided that the DeLorean was going to be his opportunity to make a statement. And I think the real error there, in my opinion, and looking at history, was not being able to offer that vehicle and maintain that vehicle and support that vehicle yourselves, and putting your product in the hands of a third-party OEM that will stick your car in some corner. And chances are, even if a consumer were to come into the store and say, hey, I'd like to look at that car, the salesperson is going to segue them into their own intellectual property, and chances are you'll fail. It happened to Coda by going into some OEM stores. Again, we looked at the importance of having our own stores. That was one. 2 years ago, we started with our very first store. We purchased the property, the facilities. We created what we believe to be our brand, and we did that in La Habra, California. And there's a reason why we did that. We looked at the electric vehicle space on a national level, and quickly we had some analytics from Tesla that corroborated that 75% of all electric vehicle sales that occur in the United States come from California. So what better place to be than in California, where 75% of all electric vehicle sales occur? So we decided to establish the footprint to enable us to get a vehicle into the market, to create consumer confidence, and more importantly, control our own destiny. And in over a 24-month period, we've opened up 8 locations. We just recently, on July 1st, opened up our first location outside of the state of California, and that is in Arizona. So the plan is to be able to take a page out of the book, Henry Ford's book, the Lamond family's book, Mercedes's book, Bavarian Motor Works' book, and be able to give the consumer a place to go buy a car. No one's going to make a $50,000 to $100,000 purchase by going online and taking a crap shoot and not knowing what you're going to get. And we believe that, listen, at the end of the day, the consumer wants to come do touchy-feely, get in the car. They want that experience. They want to go through that buying experience that they've experienced over many decades. So we're going to continue with that, but we're going to add a special twist to it. And we're going to create what we call experience centers. And we're going to create the environment for the consumer to come in, be able to take their trade-ins, because not every consumer has the ability to buy a car cash. So one of the things you got to address, and I think Elon, for the most part, initially in the early stages of Tesla, created the road path for companies like ours to look at what to do and what not to do. And one of the things that I thought we learned, and I attribute this to the greatness of Tesla, which has opened the door for guys like me to have an opportunity to succeed. Because without a Tesla, there wouldn't be anybody in the electric vehicle space. And I'll establish that right now. One of the things that we thought when we decided to open up our dealership network was being able to deal with consumer trade-ins. Most of the Americans that come in to want to get into an electric vehicle, and we learned that from Tesla, have trade-ins, and they want to get out of the trade and to get into the new car. Well, you have to be able to support that. And we decided through our distribution channel and our retail channel that we'll be able to, one, get a consumer out of the car, either recondition the vehicle, put it back on the lot, or wholesale it out. And we wanted to be able to do those effectively. And we think we've done a good job in doing that. Lastly, we looked at warranty, service, and God forbid, a potential recall. How would we deal with these things? And we wanted to deal with them right at the point of the store. Have a one-stop center where a consumer can come in and bring that car without having to make a reservation and come a month later. What happens if you buy a car and you have to go to a regional center and there's a 3-month wait? Even worse, what happens if you need a fender or you need some kind of part and they tell you that that part is 6 months in back order? I mean, you know, these are things that I think ultimately catch up to some of these startups that don't think these things through. We did. We wanted to make sure that we had the supply chain, we had the ability to provide service on demand, and we think we're doing that. Currently, 8 stores. We have a new store in Huntington Beach that'll give us 9 stores that's in the works, and we're expanding eastward. And we'll go into all the markets where EVs have significant penetration. Now, the next big question. Consumer comes in, loves your car, we can deal with the trade. Now, the big issue we have is how are we going to put them into a vehicle, right? A new manufacturer is going to have issues with getting banks to determine residual value on a vehicle. And the only really way that you can do that is through history, establishing what the market will bear, what people would be willing to pay for that vehicle on a resale level. And so taking that into consideration, if we wanted to sell our products, we were confident that we were going to have to be able to create a mechanism to allow us to carry the paper in-house, meaning become a bank. So we created Mullen Funding Corp with the sole purpose of being able to put people into cars and give them very reasonable terms, meaning be a prime lender. We've partnered up with some great groups. We're creating programs, lease options, purchase options to put people in the cars, to not have to only sell a vehicle to a person that can open his checkbook and pay for it cash, which is a very small group of people. These are things that we've addressed in advance of delivering a vehicle. Peter, next slide, please. So finally, with looking into the future and not discounting what the digital value of what was created by a lot of the pioneers that have taken vehicles and have made them available digitally through the internet, we went out in 2018 and we acquired a fintech company that we believe has an opportunity to do some very special things. Company's called CarHub. They spent $38 million developing a platform and continue to develop that platform with the idea that it will not only supplement our ability to get our product in the marketplace through a digital avenue, but more importantly, offer consumers the ability to not only buy our car, to buy anybody's car, and to create analytics that we can sanitize, collect data, use that data, and eventually sell it for a profit in the billions of dollars. As we all know, data collection is a big business. So we think that we've covered and closed the circle on things that are important, on what you need to do as a electric vehicle manufacturer in today's world, from traditional distribution to the digital presentation of a product through the internet, to ultimately being able to service and finance these products. So we feel we've closed the circle, and CarHub is just a small example of our ability to look into the future and to determine the things that we believe will allow us to be successful going forward. Good product, the ability to service a product, and more importantly than anything else, the ability to give the customer confidence that they can not only trade their product in, they can also get their product financed, and they know that we're going to be around to support that product because we've been here now almost a decade. So with that, Peter, next slide, please. You can keep going. And that's pretty much it. So I'll open it up to questions for Callan, again, who's our CEO of our automotive division. Also an amazing engineer. He comes from a great background, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors. He's built many major factories for all the OEMs. And most recently, prior to joining Mullen over 3 years ago, built the Karma plant in Moreno Valley that today produces the Karma vehicle. So, and he can definitely, enlighten us through the process and give us what reality is on getting from point A to point Z. I'm obviously the businessman. I tell people I'm the dumbest guy in the room. I usually sit in the back and let the smart guys like tell us what we need to do. Ultimately, being fiscally responsible is our key here. And two, the most important thing, and I'm going to end with this and hand it over to Kellen for any questions that people may have, is we want to build cars in America. We want to put Americans back to work in America. And really, that's our goal. We spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. last year. We were on Capitol Hill. We were, as a team, we were at the House of Representatives. We addressed the U.S. Senate. We were at the White House. And we're pushing that initiative about putting Americans back to work. And that's truly what we want to do. Forget about everything else. It's about putting Americans back to work. Callan?
Yes, so for any questions, there's free to ask. Or anything at all about our strategic plan. Any questions?
Great. Thanks so much for that detailed presentation. Really interesting story here. Just wanted to get a sense of how we should be thinking about the timeline of production and sales that you're anticipating for your products. Like how many are you selling today? Like what's the timeline of production ramp up, and any targets that you have in terms of volume for the next couple of years?
Sure. Currently, the Coda vehicle, we're not selling. The Coda vehicle is stopped in 2018. We are only servicing that vehicle that was first sold through Mullen dealership. The 9 stores that you saw and David presented, they currently sell used cars because, like he said, we're trying to maintain momentum, and those stores will be slowly be brought up to speed on new vehicle sales, and we will carry both new vehicles made by Mullen and also used vehicles, which we'll obtain through the trade-ins. So that is that portion. As far as timing to build the SUV, the MX-05, it will be probably in the second quarter of 2022. But the ramp up is as follows. Excuse me. The first year, we intend to build 5,000 vehicles. Then we ramp up to 10,000, 17,000, all the way to 35,000 a year. Those numbers are very conservative because we don't want to overpromise. And yes, go ahead.
Now, I was just saying, like, what type of price points should we expect for these vehicles? And do you already have some pre-orders in place for some of these vehicles? Just curious as to how we should be thinking about that.
We have, I was going to mention, we have pre-orders on a different vehicle, on a sports vehicle that you saw the last slide. That's the K50 sports vehicle. Going back to the MX-05, the SUV, the entry-level price point is $55,000. Excuse me. And the 2022 model year will have over 300 miles on the range. And compared to other vehicles, we believe we are very competitive. And when I say other vehicles, I'm looking at Audi e-tron, I'm looking at Tesla X, I'm looking at Jaguar. They all priced higher than 55,000. In some cases, almost double. So we believe we have a strong market need for mid-size SUV with price well priced.
I think we're almost running out of time. I just wanted to throw in one last question on the solid-state batteries. What's the timeline of that getting into commercial applications? Will the MX model have that as well at some stage, or how should we think about the development and just also the cost coming down at the same time?
Sure. The 2022 model year will be launched with a traditional lithium-ion battery, but the following year, the 2023 model year, will have the solid-state battery. The process is lengthy. Many other OEMs are trying the same thing. We have to make sure, absolutely sure, before we hand it over to the consumer that the battery has been tested and super tested, and we're undergoing that exercise right now. Typical test development takes about 24 months. We've done the preliminary, let's say 6 months of testing. Well, we still have to perform some very severe lab tests as well as vehicle testing, durability, and life cycle.
Got it. That's helpful color. And I think we ran out of time here. So thanks so much for the presentation.
Any questions you may have, let us know, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just wanted to thank you again for the presentation and sharing, the insights into the company. So wish you all the best, and look forward to having you at the conference again next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.